Hello everyone, welcome back to Learner's Buzz. In today's video, we are going to discuss some of the worldwide popular and accepted approaches to teaching of English language.
However, our major focus of today's discussion would be the communicative way, the approach to teaching of English language.
In past, there have been several approaches to teaching of English language, which have been tried and tested in various parts of the world,
including India. Let's look at some of them. These are natural approach to language acquisition, direct method, grammar translation approach, audiolingual method, the silent way, Suggestopedia, and the communicative approach to teaching of English language.
So now we come to the approach which we are going to discuss in detail here. That was the main objective today. So it is the communicative approach to teaching of English language, also known as CLT. Some of the other nomenclature actually, which we must know, the English language teachers should be aware of, are ELT, which is abbreviation used for, this is worldwidely used abbreviation for English language teaching. The other important nomenclature which we should know is ESL, that is English as a second language, and EFL, English as a foreign language, which are sometimes used interchangeably in some countries. And some of the other abbreviations used popularly worldwide we must be aware of is TEFL, that is Teaching of English as a Foreign Language, and TESOL, TESOL, Teaching of English to Students of Other Languages. So let's start with the what is our today's main focus, that is
CLT.
So there have been a number of approaches to teaching of English language used, adopted, tried, tested in various parts of the world in past.
About late 1980s, we see the emergence of this new approach to teaching of English language known as the communicative approach.
Which was later on worldwide accepted. This is called CLT also. So communicative approach to teaching of language. Before we go in the detail of what are the various aspects of this approach, I want to give you an overview of this in the Indian context. As it grew in popularity, starting from UK to various parts of the world, especially US, and about late 1990s, we see that some of the Indian universities, it was first tried in very few select Indian universities in the English language departments somewhere around 1996.
The subject was named as Communicative English, or even called Functional English at times.
And having the privilege to be the first batch students in one such university in North India, a batch of only 25 students. I'm talking about 1996. So I being the, a student among the first batch, where this subject was first introduced in any North Indian university, though it was already tried, I think 2 to 3 years before that in rest of India. And only in 3 institutions, there were a batch of 25 students each, where we had this communicative English subject introduced, for the first time. So this subject was introduced at the graduate level as an optional subject. In addition to the other, 2 subjects which we I think we still have, that is compulsory English language, which the students have to opt. I mean, not really opt. I mean, they have to study it. And another one is the elective English, which at the graduate level students opt for. So now let's have a look at what exactly were the components of this particular subject and how successful it has been.
The major components of this course were phonetics, which is a part of linguistic studies. Then there was grammar in context, pronunciation, and international phonetic transcription for the English language.
So we see that the subject included an altogether new approach to the learning of English language. It contained phonetics as a subject within it, and which is a part of linguistics studies. Further, there was fundamental and advanced grammar. The teaching of different linguistic aspects of the language was done in the language lab. And another aspect of the subject was the task-based learning. So it was observed that the subject, adoption of the subject at the higher education was quite successful, as most of the students who passed out had a near, native speaker proficiency after going through the 3 years of education. But now let's look at the other, pros and cons of how successful exactly this was, because this subject is even today available in, or rather offered by very few institutions all over India. Although, I mean, the number of institutions today are offering communicative and functional English at the graduate level. But most of the graduates who pass out from various colleges and universities all over India do not have access to this option even today. The question is, what are the implications to education of this scenario? Most of the teachers who, the future teachers, those who take the professional course for the teacher training course, who are aspirants to be teachers, content subjects also, and particularly the language teachers. They go through the graduate study without getting the option to choose where they can have a better exposure to the learning of English language, and followed by the teacher training course that they go through in most of the universities and colleges who offer the teacher training courses. They further do not assist much, particularly in case of the teaching strategies and teaching approaches to the subject of English. And another factor is the few select students who are getting an opportunity to study the subject of communicative and functional English in their graduate degree course. Most of them do not opt teaching as a profession. So what we're trying to analyze here is that when the trained teacher enters the profession, he or she has not been assisted much in the training by the system when the teacher is face to face with the challenges in today's classroom. So in today's session, let us try and make an attempt to understand what exactly do we mean by communicative approach to teaching of English language.
Somewhere around 1970s in Britain, some language experts tried to create a unit credit system for language courses. In this event, British linguist D.A. Wilkins proposed a functional or communicative definition of language that could serve as a basis for developing communicative syllabus for language teaching. He greatly contributed to analyze the communicative meanings that a language learner needs to understand and express, instead of describing the core of language through traditional concepts of grammar and vocabulary. And it must be noted that at that time, audiolingual method of teaching English language was largely adopted. And as we know, audiolingual method primarily attends to structure and form of language more than the meaning. Opposed to this, communicative language teaching focuses primarily on meaning. Dialogues center around communicative functions and are not normally memorized. Contextualizing the language is a basic premise. In the communicative approach, language learning is learning to communicate. Learner is encouraged to communicate, ignoring the structural inaccuracies. A controlled use of native language of the learner may be accepted wherever possible. Comprehensible pronunciation is accepted. Translation is not prescribed, but it may be used if the learner benefits from it. Communicative language teaching premises that the learner learns best through the process of struggling to communicate. The student is expected to interact with other people and work in pairs or groups, and the activities that involve real communication actually promotes the learning.
Now, let's see that how the approach to teaching of English language is, adopted in the school systems in India. Let's talk about the CBSE schools first. The CBSE schools they have been adopting, various approaches, sometimes language and literature, other times flipping to communicative approach. As we know that in the latest change that has been made in the updated curriculum, we again see CBSE adopting the communicative approach to teaching of English language in the schools.
Let's have a look at an approximate value given to each of the skills in the instruction as well as assessment in grade 9, for example. Here we see that out of the 100 marks assessment at the term end, we have listening and speaking skills being assessed for 5% of the total weightage. Then we have reading and writing skills, which carry about 80% of the weightage. and about 15% is assigned to the project work. So we must understand here that this is the prescriptive syllabus, and since most of the time the instruction is guided by assessment, that causes the real problem. Now, there's no denying the fact that language is, used more in speaking and listening most of the time in the real life situation. However, the standardized assessment at the term end may not be able to give a real place to it. Now, limitations of the standardized assessment are understandable. But does the practice also needs to follow the assessment? Not really, because we see that a number of schools which develop their own research and development cells for improvement in instructional design have delivered beautiful programs for the English language teaching. But that is limited to a minuscule number of institutions in India.
So what are exactly are the implications for us for the school teaching, which is our core topic for today? We conclude that when we have the communicative approach for teaching of English language in the schools, are we really clear about what are we supposed to do? So on the basis of my last 5 years interaction with the school systems, particularly we're talking about the CBSE schools here, and the approach to teaching of English language in practice. These are some of the generalizations which I wanted to share with you here. So sadly, what we observe in the Indian schools, most of the teaching in the context of English language is happening by trial and error, by not so clear approach to what exactly the objectives are and what are the strategies to be followed. What learning outcomes from the student we expect, how to achieve them, and so on and so forth. So what I learned in one of the seminars of Professor Jeremy Hammer, a veteran teacher trainer in the communicative language approach to teaching of English language. Almost anything in any way, anywhere being done in an English language class is being termed as communicative language approach to teaching of English. This approach emphasizes the communicative and functional potential of the language. This approach emphasizes the proficiency of the learner in the language over the mastery over the structures of the language. Now, we do not want to undermine the language structures. Of course, one of the core issues here is how do we decide and design the instruction? What should be the components of the syllabus for communicative approach to teaching of language? What should be the types of learning and teaching activities? Teacher has to understand that his or her major role is to facilitate the communication. Instructional material has got a very big role to play in this. Material has to be task-based. Communicative approach to teaching of English language has been unarguably one of the most popular and successful approaches to teaching of English language, teaching and learning of English language all over the world. So hoping that some of these tips, these generalizations which we discussed here, will help you in developing a better understanding of what approach we should follow and how to help the student in this process. So these were some of the generalizations based on my experience in the English language industry for last over 15 years. And if you have any suggestions, comments, any ideas which you would like to share with us, please do share. So as an English language teacher, if you face any challenges, you have similar thoughts and want to share, you're most welcome. Please do comment, and most welcome to share your thoughts here on this platform. And happy teaching. Have a wonderful day.